We're back. We're here with Dr. Lang. He's the superintendent of schools. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much for having me back, Joe and Jessica.
It was great to see you at town meeting on Monday night. I thought you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Always tough, probably, to explain the budget to 168, 68, 62, something like that.
Yeah,
reps.
It's an experience. It's relatively new to me. So my previous district had a different form of government. So this is my first town meeting experience. And I remember last year coming in, it was almost a little bit of a whirlwind. You were trying to get your bearings and see how the night was going to play out. It's difficult anticipating what some questions might be. You have a general sense of what people might ask, but then when they come up to ask different questions, I enjoy talking about the schools and I enjoy talking about the different aspects of the budget, but it's hard sometimes to have all the answers when you don't quite know what the line of questioning is going to be. But I thought Monday night overall went relatively well for the articles that went forward. I thought the line of questioning was certainly good and probing in different areas to hopefully try to get a response out. And anytime someone does ask a question, I do try to provide a full answer to at least set the context for what we're doing in the school department. So yeah, I was pretty happy with Monday night, and obviously appreciate the support of town meeting overall, approving our operational budget. And as you know, we'll be back on Thursday night to begin to talk about capital budgets and some of the other articles that are on the agenda.
Now, Monday night, they approved $57 million.
Correct.
For the schools. Was that the original ask of the schools department?
That was the ultimate request of the school committee that went forward to town meeting. When we started to put our budget together earlier in March, our preliminary budget was at about $57.4 million.
Okay.
And that was basically our level service budget, all of our carryovers from the previous year, and we had added in, as you know, full day kindergarten. So all the expenses, that was the one kind of big increase in our budget for next year. So that brought us to $57.4 million. At that point in time, the only outstanding issue that we were still trying to resolve was our transportation contract. Our 5-year transportation contract is up June 30th, so we'd gone out to bid, but we hadn't received the bid costs yet. So when that came in, the bid prices were about $100,000 net increase over what I had budgeted. So that then brought our difference to $57.5 million. So we were off by about $500,000. And I think myself and the administration, and certainly I think the school committee, felt Town Manager Cohen's recommendation of $57 million was appropriate, and we appreciated that recommendation. So we tried to really work within that and try to bring the budget down to a balance at $57 million. So I had to bring forward some recommendations to reduce some staff in certain schools based on our anticipated enrollment for next year at different grade levels. And then at the high school level, the students had just finished making their course requests for next year, so we did recommend a couple of staff reductions there. On a positive note, there were 5 in total. 4 out of the 5 individual teachers that are affected actually do hold other licenses, and we have other positions open in the district. So through attrition, they'll actually be able to remain with us. And obviously, they're great staff, they're great teachers. We've invested a lot of time and money in developing them as educators, so we want them to stay with us. So by chance, really, that happened. I wouldn't have brought different recommendations if that wasn't going to happen, because I do think those reductions need to happen. But it just worked out that the individuals who are, again, very good individuals were going to be able to remain. So that closed about half of the gap, and then the other half of the gap was filled with some additional school choice revenue, and then an additional offset in special education tuition, a reimbursement that we're going to be getting from Valley Collaborative, which is our member collaborative. They actually have excess revenue, and they need to return it to their sending districts. So as I explained on Monday night, we're earmarked to get about $440,000 either back or as a credit. So I recommended using half of that money to kind of solve the shortfall. So that brought us down in line to the $57 million. And I think that's a good ask and a reasonable budget for us for next year. It's about almost a $2.5 million increase over last year. And it certainly sets us up for a solid 17-18 school year. I'm looking forward to next year.
I was sitting there at town meeting, and there were some pretty passionate people in regards to the reduction in the 5th grade staffing at the McCarthy. I stepped back for a second because it got a little heated, and
it did,
and you were accused somewhat of just number crunching and just taking out just to find space. But I almost looked at it like as a parent in life, right? You're trying to do your very best across the entire board.
Right.
I have 4 kids, so
Right.
on any given day, I can't just necessarily give everything I can to one kid. It's kind of like you got to pick somewhere to make your cut, right?
Right.
I mean, is that how you approach it, or what's your thought process when you do
Yeah,
these
I
things?
mean, there's a lot of time and energy and different people's opinions that go into these recommendations. I think I have to somewhat step back when we're looking at these recommendations, and I am looking at K-12, the whole kind of spectrum of programs that we're offering. And we have, 16 to 20 classrooms of kids at all different grade levels throughout the district. And I've got to take a look and really make sure that the overall educational program we're putting forth is favorable for all. It's within the recommended class size guidelines that the school committee sets. And in that particular case, as you know, McCarthy is a slightly larger building than Parker, and they offer 10 sections of each grade level, and Parker has 8. But when we look at next year's 4th grade that we know are going to McCarthy in the 5th grade, and then even the year after, the 3rd grades, who we anticipate will be going up to middle school. We only had about 185 or 190 kids that were slated to go up to McCarthy for 5th grade. So if we kept the 10 teachers at the grade level, that would have dropped the average class size down to about 18 and 19 students. Again, it's a fantastic number, and I would love to have that number in all of our classes. But it's hard for me, and I think this is where my job comes in, to look across town at Parker and know that they have 8 teachers in 5th grade, and their average class sizes are 22 and 23. So when we can find some operating efficiencies within the budget, and it's not purely numbers, it's looking at program and services delivery for students as well. But we can also maintain 22, 23 average class sizes at McCarthy with this reduction. As I indicated during the budget hearings, whether this was to solve the budget gap to try to get to the 57 million, or if I was going to recommend that reduction anyway, really to be able to reallocate those resources to a bigger need within the district. Certainly I'd love all classes to be as low as they can, but you do have to maintain some level of consistency and equity and parity across the schools, and we're still able to do that and meet our needs. So it's not just a numbers game. It's very personal for the people that it affects, and I absolutely get that. For the parents who might be at either South Row or Center, which you're going to feed to the school, I get that it's absolutely personal for them. I never take anything away from that. But I wanted people to know that these kids just aren't numbers to us, that they're individual kids. We do take a look at their special learning needs, and we would never put them in a situation where they won't be successful. So there's a lot of discussion and contemplation that goes into these recommendations.
Well, my daughter's a student at the center school, so she will
Okay.
ultimately feed into the McCarthy, but
Right.
still objectively, it makes the most sense. If the Parker's already looking at kids that are 22, 23,
Right.
McCarthy being an 18, it's almost unfair a little bit. If you
Yeah.
didn't make the change, why should one school have
Well, and I would
higher
almost
classes?
expect if and again, this didn't happen, but if I were a parent from a Parker School 5th grade student, I might be at that meeting saying, I appreciate that the McCarthy's going to have 18. Why aren't I having 18 as well? And it's a hard argument. So I think we're in a situation where I do think we're, again, it's only my 2nd year in the district, but we're absolutely kind of filling some of the financial gaps that existed. I think we're on strong financial footing now, and certainly for 17-18, I feel really confident about the budget and where we're going. We're starting to build up some reserves and accounts that we need to. I think we're utilizing the appropriation effectively to deliver really great services. But we're going to have to take a look over the next number of years at our enrollments as they go from grade level to grade level, find some of those efficiencies, because we don't have extra resources to fill in some of the needs that we've identified. So within our budget document, we identified all of the regular level service program for next year. And then we started, because we want to start the discussion about what some of the other district needs are. And as we can reallocate some of the existing resources within the budget to hit those and address those needs, that's what I want to do over the next couple of years.
As far as the modular classrooms are going to be installed, are we on schedule for those? Do we look like we're going to be able to have kids in those classrooms
We
come?
will have kids in those classrooms come September. Yeah, no, it's, and that's a huge accomplishment. I
That
know
is.
as you've been following this along, but that was a very long process. I know we talked about it the last time I was on. But no, the contracts have been awarded. We have a contractor doing all the site work. We have Triumph is doing the actual physical construction of the buildings. We've been having regular meetings with them. We've already approved all of the different schematics, and the buildings are actually in design at this point and ready for a build. The site contractors really went to work over April school vacation week. Out at the Byam, they were totally leveling the site and preparing for the footings to go in. Center, because that building's actually going to be attached. We used the vacation week to, construct the forms. The cement was poured, so those are all actually, cured and ready to go. We're going to start seeing the modular buildings coming on site around the second week in June. And they'll be doing Center first because it's a little bit more complicated where the building actually ties in. But if you go to Center today, you'd actually see the footings are already in. The buildings are being constructed, and they're going to start making their way up here around June 4th, I think, is when they leave the factory. So no, we're going to have full day K in the fall, which I'm very happy and excited about. And then these additional modular buildings are they're a great value. They're a long-term solution for us. They're structurally sound. I think people are going to be very impressed with the end product. But they're on target, which is great.
That's awesome. We're running out of time. Just one last quick question. Heating's been brought up a couple times. Is that something that's being addressed by the schools? And are you guys feel like you're getting to a better place with that? Obviously, the weather's getting better, but
yeah, I couldn't be happy with the weather at this point in time. The town actually took the step, and I'll be quick, but they took the step to hire a third party to come in and do an assessment of the existing system to see how it's working. One of the recommendations is that basically the buildings really need some work on balancing, and also some of the programming aspects. That the physical equipment that was installed a few years ago is good equipment. Town meeting, one of the warrant articles, I think the second one after capital, is to appropriate some funds to, over the summer, go in. I believe it's about $200,000, which would accomplish complete rebalancing of the system in all the schools, some of the software engineering reprogramming that's necessary. And I think that's going to go a long way to addressing a lot of the different needs in the buildings. And then the contractor would stay on in the fall for the first couple of weeks while the heating season starts up again, because we really won't be able to test the system until then, and work through some of the smaller adjustments. But I absolutely think we're going in the right direction on addressing those heating issues.
that's awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for
Give us an
having me
update,
back. I really appreciate it.
and we think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank
Keep
you.
it up.
I appreciate it.
So,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you.